Here is Immortal Moments for explanation. Friends, like videos and subscribes to our channel. Martial Universe Season 10 Part 29 Explanation. So let's start our explanation. Unified the demonic beast world. Lin Dong was dazed as he blankly stared at the jade-like skeleton before him. A storm involuntarily brewed within his heart. This was because he clearly understood just how terrifying an achievement these few simple words represented. The demonic beast world was obviously even more chaotic during ancient times. Various warlords reigned over their territories, while many great overlord tribes occupied the land. The accumulated resources and foundations of these tribes were clearly not inferior to the dragon tribe. It was not a problem for the dragon tribe to fight them as equals. However, it would definitely be wishful thinking to unify the demonic beast world and make these proud tribes submit. Yet, Yang had said that when this jade skeleton was alive, he had actually managed to unify the demonic beast world. Just how terrifying was such power? He was indeed extremely powerful. In those ancient times, amongst the 8 masters, only the Ice Master and Devouring Master had no problems beating this 6-finger Sage Dragon Emperor. The other 6 could only be considered equal to him. Yang sighed. Lin Dong's mouth was slightly agape. The 8 masters of ancient times represented the pinnacle during that ancient era. Yet, this 6-finger Sage Dragon Emperor was actually comparable to them. It seemed that his strength was also out of this world. There were many powerful individuals in that ancient era. Although the 8 ancient masters were extremely strong, there were still a few peak experts who could match them. Yang chuckled. Lin Dong nodded. The 8 ancient masters were from the line of the symbol ancestor. There was perhaps no one in the world who could reach the level of the symbol ancestor, but by relying on other kinds of capabilities, it was still possible to compete with the 8 ancient masters. However, the demonic beast world ultimately honors strength. Although the demonic beast world was eventually unified under the imposing might of the 6-finger Sage Dragon Emperor and the external pressure of the World War, after the death of the 6-finger Sage Dragon Emperor, the dragon tribe no longer had the power to make the other overlord tribes submit. In the end, the demonic beast world was split again. Lin Dong nodded again. He was well aware of the desire to fight and the wild nature that flowed within the demonic beast's bones. Other than being bounded by their tribe, it was extremely difficult to make them submit. It is unexpected that this skeleton was actually so powerful when it was still alive. No wonder it possessed such a mighty aura. Lin Dong fondled his chin and looked at the jade skeleton before his eyes. Excitement continued to gather within his black eyes as he laughed. It seems that this dragon bone is even stronger than those ancient dragon bone below. Why don't I choose it? Choose it. Yang's voice seemed to have become strange at this moment. Do you really think that those lucky members of the dragon tribe who had come to this place during the past tens of thousands of years did not discover this jade dragon bone? However, none of them succeeded in the end. What does this mean? Clearly, this jade dragon bone is not something that an ordinary person can accept. Moreover, you should be able to feel just how terrifying the energy contained within this jade stone skeleton is, right? Lin Dong pursed his lips and nodded. He had sensed the terrifying power within the jade skeleton the moment he set his eyes on it. Merely sensing this power caused his body to tremble. It was likely that even all 8 of the ancient dragon bones below combined could not compare to this jade skeleton. Therefore, he clearly understood that he would very likely be exploded apart by the tremendous energy if he was to absorb this jade skeleton. Moreover, there was definitely a will left behind by the 6-finger Sage Dragon Emperor inside the skeleton. Even after so many eons, the will of such a powerful expert was definitely not something he could easily withstand. Therefore, the level of danger could be considered suicidal. I am aware that this is extremely dangerous, and there might even be a need to pay an extremely terrible price. However, I need it. Lin Dong slightly lowered his eyes. The young lady, who had appeared in the darkness earlier, surfaced in his mind once again. Although he did not come into direct contact with her, he was still able to detect some changes in the young lady. Such changes might become even greater in future. Lin Dong faintly felt that when Ying Huan's strength truly reached the apex, she would perhaps really transform into that unfamiliar ice master. The difference in their strength seemed to be gradually widening. This was something that Lin Dong was extremely opposed to. Therefore, he needed to do all he could to raise his strength. Truly a crazy fellow. Yang sighed helplessly. He did not expect that Ying Huan's identity as the Ice Master's reincarnation would end up stirring such intense determination to grow stronger within Lin Dong. Nevertheless, this was not a bad thing from a certain point of view. You can try if you really wish to. I will do all I can to protect you. If it is really not possible, you will just have to give up. Yang pondered for a moment before speaking. Many thanks. Lin Dong nodded with gratitude. Soon after, he deeply inhaled a breath of air and walked forward. Finally, he stopped in front of the lotus stone base. His arm reached out in a slow but steady manner and lightly touched the crystal-clear jade skeleton. Bang! An indescribably terrifying pressure suddenly swept out from within the skeleton the moment Lin Dong's finger touched it. Lin Dong's body instantly sunk as cracks spread from his feet. Lin Dong tightly gritted his teeth. He could feel the frightening pressure around him, and even the bones within his body gave off cracking noises. If it was not because his bones had already transformed into top-grade dragon bones earlier, it was likely that just this pressure alone would be enough to shatter the bones within his body. The pressure spread. In the end, it enveloped the entire bone burial hall. The tens of thousands of already somewhat bent bodies of the skeleton seemed to lower even further. Light suddenly gathered deep within the eyes of the jade skeleton while Lin Dong was tenaciously resisting the frightening pressure around him. In the end, the light shot into Lin Dong's black eyes. In that moment, his mind seemed to collapse as a giddiness swept over him. It was as though he was being sucked into a certain realm. This giddiness quickly faded. However, Lin Dong discovered that the scenery around him had changed drastically by the time he once again steadied his heart. It seemed to be an endlessly spacious wilderness, and an ancient aura reverberated over it. How interesting. It is unexpected that even a human is able to enter my dragon tribe's secret place. A faint voice suddenly resounded in the sky while Lin Dong was feeling lost in this foreign land. The voice contained an indescribably powerful aura, and even the world seemed to become much dimmer under this mighty aura. Lin Dong was shaken as he lifted his head. After which, he looked at the distant sky and saw a lotus stone base. There was a purple-clothed man quietly sitting below this lotus stone base. This man was rather handsome. The imposing and dignified aura between his brows made one's heart tremble. Slender hands extended from his sleeves, and there were 6 perfect fingers on each of them. 6-finger Sage Dragon Emperor. Lin Dong felt his scalp become numb. Evidently, this person in front of him was an ultimate ferocious individual who had once united the demonic beast world. Although this was only a remnant will of his, it was still extremely frightening. The current dragon tribe seems to be a lot more lax with regards to this secret place. The purple-clothed man looked towards Lin Dong. His faint voice caused a chill to rise in Lin Dong's body. Elder, only members of the dragon tribe are currently able to enter this dragon transformation pool. The reason I am able to enter is because I helped the dragon tribe and they decided to make an exception and allow me to enter the dragon transformation pool. Lin Dong hurriedly explained. The current dragon tribe actually requires your help. The purple-clothed man frowned slightly. Lin Dong smiled bitterly. He was aware that his exterior strength could not enter the eyes of this ultimate expert and quickly explained the matter of the devil-suppressing prison. Those fellows actually placed the devil-suppressing prison under the dragon region. The purple-clothed man was startled upon hearing Lin Dong's explanation. However, his eyes were a little warmer when he looked at Lin Dong again. There are many familiar scents on you. Lin Dong laughed dryly. This 6-finger Sage Dragon Emperor was indeed terrifying. He had managed to see the many secrets within Lin Dong's body with a single glance. Little one, the fact that you can come to this place shows that you do possess some ability. Although you have been a great help to the dragon tribe, it might be a little naive of you to think that you can obtain the primal dragon bone of my dragon tribe with just this. The purple-clothed man smiled. I only wish to give it my all, Lin Dong said. He was naturally not naive enough to believe that this ultimate expert in front of him would hand it over so easily. There have been 18 people who came to this place before you. All of them were top experts of the dragon tribe. However, none of them succeeded in the end. The purple-clothed man smiled slightly. He looked down upon Lin Dong and asked, "Do you think that you can succeed? Although it is extremely difficult, it is likely that Elder will simply send me flying with a slap if I do not even possess the courage to challenge it." Lin Dong laughingly said. The purple-clothed man was startled. Soon after, he could not help but chuckle. What an interesting little one. Since that is the case, I will let you have a try. What do I need to do? Lin Dong was eager. The purple-clothed man grinned as his slender six-finger hand slowly extended. At the same time, an extremely terrifying aura swept apart in a manner that blotted out the sun. There seemed to be an endless giant purplish gold dragon coiling behind him. Soon after, a laughter which caused Lin Dong's expression to stiffen slowly spread. Defeat me. Buzz. The land suddenly trembled amidst this silence as waves rose in the black dragon transformation pool below. The black pool seemed to flicker with purplish gold light as an indescribably ancient dragon roar emanated from deep within, shaking the land. Swoosh! The eyes of Yuan Qian's group abruptly opened. They gazed upon the disturbance within the dragon transformation pool as unconcealable shock finally surged upon their usually calm faces. Someone has challenged Ancestor. The area in the vicinity of the dragon transformation pool was in an uproar. Numerous gazes on the surrounding mountains looked at the churning dragon transformation pool in astonishment. All the members of the dragon tribe were well aware that the energy within this dragon transformation pool had reached a terrifyingly high amount. Hence, the water in the pool was so viscous that it was practically unable to move. Yet, raging waves had now emerged in the dragon transformation pool, which would not form even the slightest ripple even if a mountain was thrown into it. What is happening? Some of the younger generation from the dragon tribe looked at each other. They were clearly unaware of the hidden bone burial ground in the dragon transformation pool. Additionally, they had only been able to glean a minimal amount of information about the six-finger sage dragon emperor from ancient texts. Nevertheless, it was sufficient to cause their hearts to churn. After all, in the many years of demonic beast world history, only the six-finger sage dragon emperor alone had managed to unite all the powerful tribes within the demonic beast world. The extremely ancient elders around Yuan Qian no longer had their earlier indifference. Shock covered their aged faces. Given their identities, they were naturally somewhat aware of the bone burial ground. However, ordinarily speaking, only those fated individuals could enter that place. These fluctuations belong to Ancestor. Yuan Qian's expression was grave as he looked at the other elders and said, "Someone has entered the bone burial hall. Moreover, he has come into contact with the will of the Ancestor." Who? An elder asked anxiously. Not everyone who entered the dragon transformation pool could enter the bone burial hall. Only those fated ones with great determination could succeed. Moreover, once one entered, one would have a certain chance to obtain the ancient dragon bone. If successful, it would be a relatively important matter to their dragon tribe. I am not sure yet. Yuan Qian gently shook his head. His eyes were excited as he watched the churning dragon transformation pool. However, Lin Dong's face suddenly flashed across his mind. He quickly shook his head. It's unlikely, right? If it is Lin Dong, the ancient dragon bone he manages to obtain, an elder by the side spoke in a low voice. The ancient dragon bone was an extremely important treasure of their dragon tribe. As long as an ancient dragon bone was obtained, it would be possible to create a tribe member with shocking potential. If Lin Dong was to obtain one, they would lose one set. Moreover, the thing that gave them all a headache was that Lin Dong did not belong to the dragon tribe. He did not even have the slightest bit of dragon tribe bloodline in his body. Let's observe the situation first. Yuan Qian suppressed the indescribable expressions of the elders from the dragon tribe and sighed helplessly in his heart. The disturbance in the dragon transformation pool grew increasingly intense with the flow of time. Around half an hour later, two whirlpools suddenly formed within the dragon transformation pool. After which, two figures shot out under the attention of numerous gazes. Swoosh! Everyone's eyes shot towards the two figures that were shooting towards the sky, and exclamations quickly sounded. It is Yang Feng and Yuan Xin. Both of them have succeeded. Based on these ripples, they should have top-grade dragon bones. How impressive! Light scattered in the sky, revealing Yuan Xin and Yang Feng. At this moment, their bodies appeared a little straighter and their eyes contained sharp and bright glints, while black light seemingly flowed under their skin. Top-grade dragon bones. The sharp elders identified the grade of the dragon bones obtained by the two with a glance. Immediately, they exchanged glances and smiled bitterly. If this was some other time, having two young members of the tribe obtain top-grade dragon bones was already rather good news. However, they were currently unable to feel any joy. Since the Yuan Xin duo had already exited the dragon transformation pool, only Lin Dong was left inside it. It was obvious that the person who had entered the bone burial hall and came into contact with the will of the ancestor was him. This was also the case with Qingji back then. However, at least he still possessed the bloodline of our dragon tribe. Now, however, this is someone with no bloodline connection at all. An elder of the dragon tribe sighed helplessly. The other elders also had strange expressions on their faces. If Lin Dong possessed even the tiniest bit of dragon bloodline, they would perhaps all start dancing in excitement. Unfortunately, this person was a true blue human. Moreover, he was a human who was completely unrelated to them. Tribe leader? All the elders looked at Yuan Qian. Clearly, this matter had given them a headache. Let's watch how the situation develops. Although Lin Dong has entered the bone burial hall, it does not mean that he will be able to obtain the ancient dragon bone. Moreover, even if he does, it is not a big deal. Perhaps, it is time for some of the pedantic rules of our dragon tribe to change. Yuan Qian placed both of his hands behind him. His eyes were burning with excitement as he looked at the dragon transformation pool and muttered. Lin Dong, if you have the ability, my dragon tribe can make an exception for you this one time. A monstrous pressure suddenly spread in the ancient wildlands as a purplish gold dragon claw seemed to tear apart space itself. It ruthlessly swatted at a figure that was giving off an astonishing aura with extremely terrifying speed. A low and deep sound appeared and the figure shot downwards in a miserable manner. Finally, it smashed into the ground like a cannonball, creating a giant 10,000 feet deep hole. Cough. A miserable figure coughed intensely within the large pit. His body was drenched in blood while the originally brilliant green light had dimmed significantly. This figure naturally belonged to Lin Dong, who had challenged the six-finger sage dragon emperor. However, his challenge had the same powerless feeling as a mayfly attempting to shake a tree in the face of this once terrifying person. Even though all that remained of this peak expert, who was once on par with the 8 ancient masters, was a mere fragment of his will, he was still extremely powerful. Your strength and your courage do not match. The six-finger sage dragon emperor was seated on a lotus stone base in the sky. His eyes were indifferent as he looked at the miserable figure below and spoke in a faint voice. Your current self cannot obtain my recognition. Therefore, you should give up. In the deep pit, Lin Dong wiped off the trace of blood at the corner of his mouth and lifted his head. Those pitch-black eyes were filled with a wild desire to fight as he stared at the six-finger sage dragon emperor. He did not refute the latter's words. Instead, he suddenly stepped forward as surging green light emerged once again. A dragon roar subsequently reverberated across the sky as the green light wrapped around his body and he gradually transformed into a 10,000 feet large green dragon. The green dragon coiled on the ground as battle desire rose within those dragon eyes. An iciness and boldness flickered on the green dragon scales all over its body, making it seem as if it was made from metal. Swoosh! The green dragon jerked and suddenly transformed into a flash of green light that swept forth. A frightening shock wave accompanied it as it charged directly towards the six-finger sage dragon emperor in the sky. A trail of green light seemed to remain wherever he passed. Oh! What a familiar fluctuation! Someone who practiced this martial art seems to have come here before, The six-finger sage dragon emperor looked at the green dragon that was rushing over, but merely smiled and slowly shook his head. However, this is still not enough. He extended his long jade-like hand after his voice sounded. With a gentle wave, his hand instantly swelled and grew 100,000 feet in size. It blotted out the sun and ruthlessly swatted the body of the rapidly approaching green dragon. Bang! Blood splattered in the sky and the green dragon was torn apart an inch at a time. It let out a sorrowful roar towards the heavens. However, the seemingly huge force did not even shake the giant hand. Instead, it was once again smashed downwards, creating another 100,000 feet gorge on the vast ground below. Green light dimmed and disappeared as the green dragon once again turned back into a human. Lin Dong's expression was deathly pale while blood continuously dripped from his pores. His appearance was exceptionally wretched. The person who had practiced this martial art back then had a much greater attainment in it than yourself. However, even he ended up failing. You should be related to him, right? The six-finger sage dragon emperor faintly smiled and said. Lin Dong bitterly smiled. Had Elder Qingji also come to this place? It was unexpected that even someone as strong as the latter had returned in defeat. Could it be that it was impossible for him to obtain this strongest, primal dragon bone? He was truly unwilling to accept this. It is not completely impossible. Yang's faint voice was emitted at this moment. Do you have a solution? Lin Dong licked off the trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. This six-finger sage dragon emperor is merely a remnant will. You must defeat this will if you wish to beat him, however, with your current strength, you are completely no match for it. Therefore, you need a helper. Helper? You? Lin Dong was taken aback. Presently, even I cannot beat him. Yang lazily said. You possess the devouring ancestral symbol with you. Due to the death of the devouring master, there should be a remnant will of the devouring master in the devouring ancestral symbol. If you can communicate with this lingering will, you might perhaps be able to summon the devouring master. Only then will you be able to defeat the six-finger sage dragon emperor in this willpower domain. Lin Dong was quiet after hearing this. He sat down and shut both of his eyes and all undulations around him gradually disappeared. The six-finger sage dragon emperor in the sky raised his eyebrow upon seeing this and stared at Lin Dong with some interest. He really wished to see just what other techniques this young man was going to bring out. The wild land sunk into a strange silence because of this. This silence continued for 3 full days. The six-finger sage dragon emperor did not disturb Lin Dong during these 3 days. All he did was look down at this skinny figure with an unchanging expression. As a previous king-like figure in the demonic beast world, he gave off a proud and unyielding aura despite being a mere lingering will. However, it was obvious that this six-finger sage dragon emperor did not intend to continue this meaningless wait. Hence, he finally turned his eyes downwards on the 3rd day as his faint voice resounded in the sky. Little one, your time is almost up. If you wish to select a dragon bone, you should go and try your luck with the others. He waved his sleeve after his voice sounded and a purplish gold light pillar shot out before enveloping Lin Dong. Buzz. However, the space in front of Lin Dong suddenly split apart just as the purplish gold light pillar was about to hit him. It reached out like a giant mouth of darkness and instantly swallowed the purplish gold light pillar. Oh! This sudden scene caused the six-finger sage dragon emperor to be startled. Both of his eyes stared intently at the area behind Lin Dong. The space there slowly distorted and a figure stepped out from the end of the distorted space. Ha ha, you bizarre six-fingered dragon. You are already dead, yet you still bully the younger generation. Aren't you ashamed? A clear laughter resounded across the sky when the human figure slowly walked out from the distorted space. The pupils of the usually calm six-finger sage dragon emperor finally tightened when this voice was emitted. Soon after, his low voice contained some bewilderment as it sounded. Devouring. Master. The space behind Lin Dong distorted and a black vortex slowly took shape. Soon after, a tall figure slowly stepped out from within. The light in this place seemed to have suddenly dimmed when this figure appeared. Even the air itself began to gather towards the figure at a shocking speed. This figure was just like a black hole as he devoured everything around him in an overbearing fashion. The brilliant light radiating from him was also extremely glaring. After the black hole stilled, the figure finally stood up. He was wearing long black robes and was quite handsome. Meanwhile, there was also a smile present at the corner of his mouth. His smile seemed to possess a demonic aura that caused one to involuntarily become absent-minded. This man was just like a deep black hole as he involuntarily attracted others to him. This man stood quietly in front of the black hole. However, his quiet demeanor caused the six-finger sage dragon emperor seated on the lotus stone base to slowly reveal a grave expression in his eyes. The endlessly imposing aura that enveloped this world was being devoured an inch at a time by that smiling black-clothed man. The entire world was silent as those two figures faced each other from afar. It seemed as though even the flowing air had suddenly stilled at this moment. After tens of thousands of years, these two great beings, who had once towered over the world, ended up meeting in such a strange fashion. How unexpected! This silence continued for a long time, before the six-finger sage dragon emperor finally broke the silence. He stared at the familiar figure before slowly continuing, "I didn't expect to meet you. This little fellow is nonetheless the new owner of the devouring ancestral symbol. Moreover, he is able to find my lingering will within the devouring ancestral symbol. Therefore, I will naturally have to lend him a hand." The black-clothed man was likely the devouring master. He looked at the six-finger sage dragon emperor with his dark black eyes and laughed. "You have found quite a good helper." The six-finger sage dragon emperor turned his head, looked at Lin Dong below and said. Lin Dong shrugged his shoulders. In this mental realm, it was obvious that he could not defeat the six-finger sage dragon emperor. After all, they were on completely different levels. Therefore, he did not find it shameful to ask for help when up against the six-finger sage dragon emperor, who was considered a top-ranked expert even during the ancient era. After all, being able to summon a helper also took some ability. He had searched the interior of the devouring ancestral symbol for a total of 3 days, before he finally discovered the lingering will of the devouring master and invited this great being out. It was likely that only the devouring master, who had once defeated the six-finger sage dragon emperor, would be able to defeat the latter's will. However, "I really like this helper of yours." The six-finger sage dragon emperor parted his lips into a smile. There was a fierce heat surging in his eyes. After which, he slowly stood up from the lotus stone base. "Devouring master, it is really unexpected that we would meet in this fashion. It seems like even someone as powerful as you eventually died." The six-finger sage dragon emperor stared at the devouring master. His smile was filled with excitement. "Have a final fight with me. Just like before, you still love to fight." The devouring master stared at the excited smile on the six-finger sage dragon emperor's face, before he grinned and nodded gently. "Even though this is our final fight, I will not go easy on you." After he spoke, the devouring master slowly shut his eyes. After which, an endless darkness seemed to sweep out from the space behind him like floodwater, the moment his eyes were shut. "Ha ha!" The six-finger sage dragon emperor laughed heartily towards the sky. His body moved and he directly transformed into a seemingly endlessly large purple-golden dragon that crouched in the sky. His frightening dragon pressure caused the space itself to tremble. 8 sage dragons, demon-suppressing stage. A monstrous purple-golden light spread. Soon after, a dragon roar resounded. After which, one could see 8 incredibly huge sage dragons gathering in the sky. They meandered and crouched down. Meanwhile, there was 100,000 feet large stone platform in the middle, which was emitting a brilliant glow. The surrounding space trembled and cracked under these frightening ripples. Lin Dong's expression was grave as he stared at these attacks, which could destroy the world. Clearly, the six-finger sage dragon emperor had no intention of warming up as he had unleashed his signature move for his first attack. If Lin Dong was on the receiving end of this attack, it was likely that he would have been sent flying out of this realm. The sage dragons took flight and they entwined themselves around the 100,000 feet large stone platform. Subsequently, they penetrated through space and smashed towards the devouring master. Rumble. Due to the pressure from the stone platform, everything within a 5,000-kilometer radius collapsed. Looking from a distance away, it appeared just like an endless deep pit. However, up against this shocking attack, the handsome devouring master continued to remain calm. The black light behind him grew and filled the horizons. In the next moment, a calm voice, which contained an endless demonic strength, was softly emitted from his mouth. Devouring world. The devouring master's eyes suddenly opened at this moment. It turns out that they had actually transformed into two rotating black holes. Instantly, the entire world turned completely dark. Following which, an overbearing devouring light spread at a speed which was undetectable by the naked eye. As that light spread, even the yuan power and air were devoured by it. The entire place was turned into a devouring world by the devouring master. The devouring light shot upwards. Subsequently, it forcefully collided head-on with the 100,000 feet large stone platform surrounded by sage dragons, in a domineering manner. Sizzle sizzle. Shockingly, there was no loud sound being emitted. In fact, neither was there any earth-shaking energy assault waves. Just like a rock sinking into the ocean, these two large attacks, which possessed strength that could destroy the world, did not even create the slightest ripple upon contact. The devouring light continued to spread. In fact, it was possible to vaguely spot the sage dragons roaring within the devourment. Following which, a holy light spread and collided with the light, which was filled with devouring power. However, it was obvious that the overbearing devouring power was stronger. Hence, the vast and mighty holy light was gradually extinguished like a candlelight, before it disappeared. The devouring light suddenly ceased spreading the moment the holy light vanished. After which, it shrunk at a frightening speed. Within a dozen breaths' time, it had completely withdrawn into the body of the devouring master. The darkness in the surroundings quietly withdrew before sunlight shone down. Everything remained silent. However, Lin Dong was aware that the outcome of their fight had already been decided. A fight at that level did not have the same brilliant aesthetics as that of a close-range fight. However, the dangers involved were much greater. The six-finger sage dragon emperor still maintained the same stance in the sky, whereby his hand was extended. It was a long moment later before he slowly lowered his head and shook his head gently. The devouring world is even capable of devouring a reincarnation stage expert, should one fall into it. To think that I am still unable to break it. Lin Dong was quietly in shock upon hearing this. The devouring world from the devouring master was actually so powerful that even a reincarnation stage expert would fail to escape if he was caught in it? Is that the strength of the 8 ancient masters? Lin Dong clenched his fist tightly. The devouring master was ranked second amongst the 8 ancient masters. Yet, his techniques were already this terrifying. Hence, he truly did not know just how overwhelmingly powerful the first-ranked ice master must have been at her prime. The 8 ancient masters really did live up to their names. The devouring world cannot trap you. The devouring master spoke with his hands behind his back. As his black clothes fluttered with the wind, his long hair also drifted with the wind, giving him an elegant and domineering demeanor. His demeanor left one impressed, and it was no surprise that even the extremely beautiful nine-tailed fox was mesmerized by him. However, I am no match for you once I fall into it. The six-finger sage dragon emperor sighed. His eyes turned towards Lin Dong as he said, "Little fellow, you win. The primal dragon bone is yours. However, I hope that after you manage to accomplish great deeds in the future, you will help my dragon tribe to form another primal dragon bone." After all, Lin Dong was not a member of the dragon tribe, and the entire dragon tribe had only one set of primal dragon bone. However, if Lin Dong managed to make stunning progress in the future, it would be possible for him to help the dragon tribe to create another set of bones. If I am able to do so, I will definitely do my best. Lin Dong cupped his hands together and spoke in a deep voice. He also knew that he had obtained major benefits from the dragon tribe. In the future, the world will ultimately belong to the young. The devouring master lowered his head and stared at Lin Dong. A smile surfaced on the corner of his mouth before he said, "You possess two great ancestral symbols. Perhaps we will have to rely on you when the Great World War breaks out once again. Lin Dong nodded gently. When that time comes, the entire world would descend into great danger and no one would be able to escape. Everyone would have to face the calamity together. My will has waited for a very long time and has already reached its limits. Hopefully, my tribe will become increasingly prosperous in the future. The six-finger sage dragon emperor smiled. His smile showed that he was finally able to relieve a great burden that he had been carrying. After all, he had waited for far too long in this place. Although there were many powerful individuals in the dragon tribe, no one was able to defeat him and obtain the primal dragon bone. Now, his mission has finally came to an end. The body of the six-finger sage dragon emperor slowly began to turn illusory after his voice sounded. Lin Dong, the devouring ancestral symbol only contains a part of my remnant will. If you wish to obtain my true inheritance, you should come to the devouring divine hall to look for me. I know that you possess the ability to do so. The devouring master smiled towards Lin Dong while his body also began to disappear. Goodbye, elders. Lin Dong looked at the two figures, which were gradually disappearing, with a solemn expression. Then, he respectfully bowed towards them, just like a member of the younger generation ought to. Ha ha. The two figures in the sky let out a soft laughter. After which, their bodies completely vanished. Lin Dong released a breath of white vapor after the two of them disappeared. Meanwhile, he gradually began to clench his hand, before a heated expression surged in his black eyes. Finally, he spread his arms while his tired face also began to relax. Primal Dragon Bone. I have finally gotten my hands on you. This episode ends here.